Hello, everyone. This is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Today, we are discussing the critical gap between identifying talent and actually developing it. In 2026, leadership risk is one of the greatest threats to business continuity. Yet, many firms are still relying on static, once a year spreadsheets to plan for their future. Joining us today is Peter Demangos, CEO and co founder of Succession HR. Peter has spent his career helping organizations modernize how they think about leadership readiness and talent risk. He is an expert in helping executive teams move beyond reactive checklists towards data driven, actionable strategies that build long term resilience. So, before further ado, let's welcome this very special guest. Peter, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Kripa. Very nice to be here. I appreciate being part of this discussion with you.
Of course, and I'm looking forward to the conversation, Peter. Now, you often say that, identifying a succession or a successor isn't the hard part, but consistently developing them is the most difficult part where most companies often fail. So let's start the conversation by understanding from your perspective, why do traditional spreadsheets fail in succession planning and what risks do they create?
Yeah, and that's really why we exist as a business. Succession
Right.
planning historically has been done in Excel, manually, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, reviewed annually. And because of that, they're very static. They're outdated, especially in today's environment where things are more fast paced moving, whether it's the businesses, but also individuals. People don't stay in a career to the same extent that they did in the past. And I don't necessarily mean with leaving companies, but even in an organization, people want more
Mhm.
mobility internally in the organization. So priority shift, business priorities, people priorities. So having something that's static in Excel that's reviewed annually just doesn't work anymore because it doesn't keep pace with how business is actually done, how people are developed.
Mhm.
So because of that, you risk kind of having this false sense of coverage when maybe there isn't the coverage that's there. So that ultimately succession planning, yes, it lives with HR, and we'll talk about sort of how to get it out of HR, hopefully as well, and how to make
Mhm.
it more practical. But it's really a business mitigation strategy. How do we reduce leadership risk, reduce business risk by having proper succession planning for our key people in our organization? So something that's static, that's not moving at the pace of how talent is moving within an organization.
Mhm.
It's just not practical, and it is a risk in itself. And then the other part I would say, is just visibility. Kind of what I was saying a moment ago. Visibility should be beyond just HR. Should be other
Right.
people that are involved in contributing to the process, other perspectives. Yes, HR is the architect and the custodian and manages governance of the process.
Mhm.
Really effective succession planning is one where non-HR leaders are also part of that, and they have
Right.
visibility and input. So because of that, Excel or anything manual will certainly not do the trick. Um,
Right.
and we're seeing that shift. Companies, I think, in
Mhm.
general, are moving more towards an operationalized, system of
Of
record.
course. Yes, definitely. I think very well articulated. In the day and age of tech that we are in right now, doing anything manually, just seems like such an old idea already. And what you said, I think relying on outdated data, it definitely creates that false sense of security that quickly crumbles the moment an actual leadership transition occurs. So, great insights there. Next, this conversation will be incomplete without, of course, the mention of artificial intelligence and where that is taking us today. So let's explore using AI for the proactive talent insights. So, Peter, how can AI improve talent insights and leadership readiness beyond manual processes? Go ahead.
So, as a quick summary, I would say just speed and scalability. AI in general
Mhm.
has provided that level of impact in every business, certainly in succession planning. Succession planning historically, because of its challenges, be it manual, spreadsheets, et cetera,
Mhm.
being kind of stuck within HR, hasn't been given the opportunity to go deeper in the planning that it should. So, what I mean by that is, yeah, if you have a small organization, there are a level of key leaders that are vital to the organization. Well, unless there's a way to scale that process, it stays very high level as
Mm-hmm.
far as who we're protecting, who we're having succession plans for. But with the process, something that's scalable, it's allowing companies to go deeper, all the way down to first level managers. Anyone who is responsible or a manager and has direct reports, if they were to leave the organization, in theory, there's a risk that is exposed in that event. So succession planning all the way down to the first level managers is impossible without tools and certainly without AI. So AI,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, just allows companies to scale solving the problem. And it allows, in that vein, so if we kind of work through the process, so one is like the system allows
Mm-hmm.
it to get scale, and then the processes within that. So if we think about some basic steps in succession planning, identifying
Mm-hmm.
key roles, so leveraging even AI to help assist with, especially as we feed AI information about an organization or as the
Mm-hmm.
organization feeds it, as far as where the direction of the company is going, the development of its people, the divergence of the roles today versus where the company is going, that might need different skill sets than what the skill sets of the company are today across their people.
Right.
So AI will help bridge some of those gaps quicker to say, well, this is the trend of key roles we should be thinking about. These are the type of DNA candidates that have been successful, and we should take the skills and competencies of these individuals and
Mm-hmm.
suggest ways to develop other talent in the organization so we can better ensure success. And then sort of inferring a lot of activity that happens where it's doing certain development tasks
Mm-hmm.
as an individual that's a successor candidate. All that activity should have some outcomes. There should be some, the AI, at least in today, can infer certain development of skills and competencies and that and those outcomes based on activity. So again, kind of feeds this full loop of actions, results, would then give more skills and competencies listed on employees,
Mm-hmm.
then can present a few different opportunities. So there's a lot that AI can do, and it doesn't have to be, nor our take, at least today, is it shouldn't replace human decision making.
Of course.
It
Yes.
enhances sort of the work that goes into getting those insights. So everything
Mm-hmm.
that when we think of AI, everything comes to the point where a human is saying, yes, do I acknowledge the reasoning behind what the AI suggested? Yes. Do I want to edit it? But at least it gets us 90% of the work is completed by leveraging what AI brings to the
Right.
table.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is nothing that's foreign to, or nothing specific that just the succession planning. That's just like the magic of what we're seeing in AI right now, in all areas of
Mm-hmm.
definitely talent management, succession planning,
Right.
doing some pretty neat things.
Definitely, I think I agree with you. It's the perfect combination of AI going hand in hand with the human brain that, is going to make wonders happen. And shifting that burden of data analysis to AI, it definitely allows HR leaders to, stop being data entry clerks and start being the strategic architects of leadership, as you mentioned. That's great. Now, we also talked about making succession planning a business wide priority, right? So, how do you suggest, Peter, how do organizations drive manager level accountability for succession planning?
Yeah, so at Succession HR, we call them key role owners. There's nothing fancy about the name.
Right.
You are responsible. You are the owner of the key role. And by that, we mean not necessarily HR, non-HR leaders. So in a perfect key role owner model system, as we encourage it with our customers,
Hmm.
HR architects succession planning with corporate. They define the key roles that we want to have succession plans for. And then we invite key role owners to all of those succession plans. So in many cases, it's the incumbent, the person that's in the role. Often, other times, it's the incumbent's manager or department head. So essentially, whoever's closest to the role. And really, their responsibility is to be accountable for that role. It's a risk that they've been given responsibility for. It's a business risk. And where we see it succeed is when organizations make this part of a performance process for managers. So not only to excel in your role as a manager, you have to make sure your role has a proper succession plan. Uh, and that's that's for most managers, that's a really easy thing to understand because they understand the bigger picture of the of business and so forth. So that key role owner model is a really effective way of making succession planning come alive rather than it being a once a year exercise that sits in an Excel file with HR. And to no fault of HR, they have so many things on their plate. Creating an operationalized succession plan just cannot happen when it's an HR team that has to do all the work, organize it, but then go and follow through and do the candidate readiness assessments, the development planning work, all that. We need non-HR leaders part of that process. So that's something that we see our customers taking on within our platform, and it works exceptionally well. And it's the right way to go about succession planning, and it works really well.
I think on that note, I'd like to give a special message to all of our listeners at this point, specifically to all the founders and CEOs watching. In 2026, succession planning isn't urgent until it's an emergency. If you are a senior leader responsible for critical roles, you need to be at Succession HR's upcoming webinar on June 17th. It's a guide specifically for key role owners to help you understand your impact on the future of your company. Don't wait for a key departure to realize your bench is empty. Visit successionhr.com to learn how a continuous, data driven approach can turn your leadership development from a yearly core into competitive advantage. Your future leaders are already in your building. It's time to start developing them with intent. Now, coming back to you, Peter, what you said, embedding accountability through key role owners, it definitely ensures that succession becomes an ongoing dialogue rather than a checklist that, sits on a shelf. So, great insights there. Next, I'd love to touch upon building continuous leadership development habits. So, everyone has a different definition of how a leader should be or what leadership means, but more than anything else, it's also a mindset shift that needs to happen. It's a switch that needs to go on, right? So please go ahead and educate our listeners on what mindset shift is needed to move from an annual succession planning to a continuous approach.
Yeah, it's a great question, and probably and truthfully the biggest challenge when we think about succession planning. It's how do we introduce a task that otherwise maybe non-HR wasn't doing before. And that's really being responsible for their key role, identifying candidates, developing those candidates. And often, sometimes there's this elephant in the room, which is, well, am I developing my replacement? But if it's done correctly, in most cases it is, that's not the case. I mean, as an individual to develop in their own career, they have to leave behind the key role that they're currently in a way that's well managed. The risk is reduced. There's a continuity plan in place. So for most organizations where managers are aware of their own development, they very much and easily buy into the idea that in order to develop myself, I also have to develop people.
Yes.
I don't think we can succeed as an organization if we only just think about ourselves. And it's a great moment when organizations, really led by HR, they can build culture around. Building and developing other people is just as important as hitting any other KPI or metric or goal that you have as a manager. Developing the people around you is equal to that, or maybe even more significant, because ultimately it is the people of the company that make the business successful. So thankfully, organically, we're seeing that mindset shift in a lot of organizations. It's not really a push that we have to provide. But I mean, that's just sort of the reality of, if there was any friction, that I would say is the challenge, but companies are doing a really good job of overcoming that. So yeah, and part of that is, obviously having a cultural discussion around that,
right,
but also even tying performance directly to that. We see customers where, as part of their performance KPIs, by developing certain people, they actually achieve certain goals that they're required to achieve.
Right.
Really making it something that's tangible, we find is really effective as well. So the shift is happening, which is great. Companies are really adopting this idea of developing people as a priority for the organization. So yeah, that's it's not an easy task, but great companies are doing it. So
No, that's amazingly articulated again. Peter, I love how passionate you are about, what you're doing. And a question that comes to my mind is, did you always wanted to, become an entrepreneur and be in this people space, or is it something that you naturally stumbled upon in your career? So what's the story there?
Yeah, probably a bit of both. This is my third business, so I love being
Uh-huh.
in business. The third business also in the world of HR. So it's
Oh,
not a coincidence. I
wow.
did kind of stumble in the world of HR, and I think like most business owners, you pursue an opportunity, you pursue pain points. So this particular business, which is a few years old, I had no
Hmm.
idea how painful the problem was. And I really just went to my network after having sold my prior business, which was an HR software,
Hmm.
a general HR software. Now, succession planning, succession HR is a very specific niche succession software. So I just
Right.
went to my market. We realized, well, succession planning is a big problem for companies. And I would say for any entrepreneur looking to start a business, don't search very far. Just ask people what problems they're facing, and
Right.
eventually the business will present itself.
Exactly. I think we're grateful that you've been doing what you're doing and you're contributing in such a meaningful way to the Canadian economy. I'm loving this conversation today, Peter, and definitely I'd love for you to be back, hopefully for an in studio episode that we do the next with you.
Yeah.
But before we let you go for today, if there's one final piece of advice that you have for leaders starting to update an outdated succession plan, if you could whisper something into their ears, what would you say and why?
Start simple and start now.
Hmm.
That's really it. And don't
Right.
feel as if it all has to fall on your shoulders. It's a
Right.
collaborative exercise, HR with non-HR business leaders, but
Hmm.
keeping it simple to start and just getting started.
Beautiful. I think that is a great reminder that the best time to start planning for tomorrow was yesterday. But the second best time is right now. Peter,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Kripa. It's my pleasure as well. Thank you for having me.
All right, that was Peter Demangos from Succession HR, a masterclass in moving beyond spreadsheets, leveraging AI for talent insights, and why leadership readiness is a shared responsibility across the entire executive team. To all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and visit CanadianSME.ca for more such resources. To learn more about how we are supporting the ecosystem, please visit the Canadian SME Small Business Foundation at smbfoundation.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our partners, UPS, our shipping partner, and ADP, our HR partner, for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses across Canada. I'll see you all in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.